You know that one neighbor, the one who thinks the entire world should operate under her rulebook, one she updates every 5 minutes depending on how inconvenient your happiness is to her. Yeah, that's Karen. Not a nickname, that's her actual government-issued first name. I wish I were being ironic. When I bought the house 3 years ago, I knew there was an HOA, but the fees were low and the neighborhood was nice. Tree-lined streets, quiet evenings, families walking their dogs. It looked like something out of a real estate brochure filtered through Instagram. I didn't know I was signing up to share space with a woman who treats bylaws like holy scripture and her clipboard like the sword of God. The first 6 months were manageable. Karen's passive-aggressive notes about my aggressively bright porch light were tolerable. Her complaints about my lawn violating symmetry standards made me laugh. But I maintained the peace. I smiled at meetings. I waved when we passed each other. I even brought cookies to the Christmas social. Store-bought, because screw her, but still, I played nice. Then came the garage incident. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays are trash days, and I had just finished dragging my bins to the curb. I was working from home, enjoying the luxury of sipping actual coffee instead of break room tar. I walked into the garage to grab some tools. I was planning to replace a leaky faucet, trying to live the dream of competent home ownership, when I noticed something bizarre. A car in my garage. Not my car, not a friend's car, not a neighbor borrowing a spot with permission. No, this was a beige 2012 Toyota Camry, the exact flavorless vehicle you'd expect someone like Karen to drive. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe I left the garage door open and someone accidentally pulled in. But no, there it was, perfectly parked, windows rolled up, and then I saw her, Karen, sitting in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, scrolling through her phone like she was parked at a Starbucks. I tapped on her window. She didn't roll it down, no. She held up one finger as if I had interrupted her. So I knocked again, harder this time. She finally rolled it down, 2 inches, like I was some panhandler trying to sell oranges on the freeway. "Can I help you?" she asked, as if I'd somehow pulled my house into her garage. I blinked. "You're in my garage." She blinked back. "Yes, I needed to be out of the sun for a minute. The board hasn't approved those tree removals I suggested, so it's sweltering out here." I stared at her. "You just pulled into my garage without asking." She actually scoffed. "Well, your garage door was open. It's not like it's a private space if it's just sitting there wide open." Ah, right. Of course. Like the Grand Canyon, open space equals people mad, by the way, when you don't yell. I smiled. "All right, then. Stay as long as you'd like." She nodded, smug as a cat who just pissed in your shoe. I walked back into the house, pressed the button on my remote, and heard the smooth, satisfying whir of the garage door closing. From inside the house, with her still inside. Now look, I didn't immediately intend to trap her. I just needed her to understand how far past the line she'd stepped. I figured once the garage closed, she'd honk or knock or maybe call me like a rational person. But Karen isn't rational. She's Karen. 2 minutes later, my phone started buzzing like a beehive on Red Bull. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then a second call. Then a third. Then I heard it. Sirens. That woman called 911 from inside my garage because I had illegally confined her. You ever stand in your living room watching 2 squad cars roll up to your house over a parking spot? Because I have. And the dumbest part? I wasn't even surprised. So there I was, standing in my driveway in flip-flops, a cup of lukewarm coffee in my hand, watching 2 police officers step out of their squad cars like they were walking into a hostage situation. One of them, Officer Duncan had the exact face of a man who'd already had a long day and wasn't thrilled about playing garage mediator. The other one, younger and too eager, looked like he still believed in the magic of community policing. Poor guy. Karen was pounding on the inside of my garage door like she was reenacting a zombie apocalypse. The muffled, panicked yells leaking from the garage would have been comical if they weren't so shrill. "Sir," Officer Duncan said, walking up the driveway, "do you know there's a woman locked in your garage?" I took a sip of coffee. I had my suspicions, yes. He gave me a look. "She says you shut the garage door on her car while she was inside." I nodded. "Correct." Pause. "And why did you do that?" "Because she parked in my garage, without permission, on my property. I figured she wanted a little privacy." The young officer was clearly trying not to laugh. Duncan wasn't as amused. "Sir, you can't just trap someone in a garage." "Am I being detained?" I asked politely. "Because you have to play the game. Never lose your cool. Never raise your voice. Always make them be the ones to break character first." Duncan exhaled. "Just open the garage." I did, and there she was, sunglasses askew, red-faced, flustered, like a cat yanked out of a drawer. She stormed out of her car, pointing a trembling finger at me like I was the Antichrist. "He trapped me. I could have died in there. It was suffocating." "In a ventilated two-car garage?" I said. "During broad daylight?" She spun toward the officers. "I demand that he be arrested for unlawful confinement." The officers exchanged a look. "Ma'am," Officer Duncan said slowly, "did you have permission to park in his garage?" She paused, and then came the real Karen moment. "It's community property. He pays the same HOA fees as I do. We all share the amenities." My jaw didn't drop, but my eyebrows nearly escaped orbit. "Karen," I said, "you do realize this is a private garage attached to a private home, not a community pool, right?" She ignored me and continued her tirade at the cops. "This is what happens when you let people like him into the neighborhood. They don't understand boundaries. They don't respect rules." Ah, there it was. People like him. A phrase that said more than she realized. Officer Duncan visibly stiffened. "Ma'am, you illegally entered private property. He could have had your vehicle towed." She blinked. Twice. Like the idea hadn't. Closing his garage door. "You were trespassing. Be glad he didn't call us first." She looked between them and me and them again, trying to calculate the angle. But the math wasn't mathing. The cops weren't buying what she was selling, and I certainly wasn't offering her a refund. Karen's face flushed, her hand clenched around her car keys. "This isn't over." I smiled. "I hope not." The officers gave her a warning. No charges, no ticket, but told her in clear terms that if she set foot in my garage again, I had every right to call for a tow, or worse. She reversed out of the driveway in a huff, tires screeching slightly, as dramatic as one can be in a beige Camry. The garage door slowly hummed closed behind her. I turned back toward the house, heart still pounding a little, and took another sip of my now cold coffee. See, that's the thing about people like Karen. They never learn. They escalate. And I was already 3 steps ahead of her. You'd think most people, after calling 911 and embarrassing themselves in front of 2 cops, would lie low for a while. Reflect. Maybe journal. Not Karen. By Thursday morning, just 2 days after the garage incident, I got a notice taped to my front door from the HOA. Apparently, my mailbox was non-compliant. The paint color was 2 shades darker than approved. I wish I were joking. They even included a paint swatch, like I was redecorating the foyer, instead of owning a mailbox that had been the same color for 3 years. But the letter wasn't just absurd. It was petty. And that meant only one thing. Karen was making her move. See, what Karen lacked in intelligence, she made up for in relentless bureaucratic pettiness. She'd been the HOA secretary for 7 years. which meant she had access to every line item, every bylaw, every rule buried in the fossil record of the neighborhood charter. And now, she was weaponizing all of it. That week, I received a warning about my trash bins being visible from the street, a notice about my overgrown shrubbery, a slightly rebellious rosemary bush, and a particularly poetic letter explaining that the hummingbird feeder in my backyard was attracting non-native species and disrupting the ecological balance. I was almost impressed. But here's the thing, Karen made two mistakes. First, she underestimated how stubborn I am. Second, she forgot that paper cuts go both ways. So, I started collecting. Every single letter, every passive-aggressive note, every unsolicited picture she took of my property from the street, like she was working a real estate sting. I made digital copies, time-stamped everything, and filed a complaint with the actual HOA board, not the fake dictatorship Karen thought she ran. Turns out, her habit of issuing fines without board approval was already a problem. Then came the real kicker. Friday night, I was in the garage again, door open this time, working on replacing a brake pad on my car. I had gloves on, music playing low, just minding my business. And who do I see, phone in hand, hovering across the street? Karen, filming me. Not subtly, not covertly, just full-on citizen surveillance mode. So I waved, and she had the gall to yell across the street, "Working on vehicles in driveways is against regulation." I shrugged. Then good thing I'm in my garage. She actually stepped closer, phone raised like she was about to stage a documentary. "I've already reported you." I set my wrench down, calmly, wiped my hands, walked to the edge of my driveway. "Karen, I know you think you're some kind of moral compass for the neighborhood, but you're not. You're just a bored, bitter woman with too much free time and a superiority complex." Her lips tightened. She looked like she was about to spit out another HOA regulation when I added, "And if you step onto my property again, I will have you trespassed. Formally, legally, with actual charges." She smiled. "Let's see who the HOA believes." And that's when I knew. Karen was planning something bigger. She wasn't just annoyed anymore. She wanted me gone. The next morning, I found out just how far she was willing to go. Saturday morning, 7:12 a.m. I'm barely conscious, standing at the front door in gym shorts and a t-shirt, blinking at a city inspector holding a clipboard like it's a sword of judgment. "Good morning. We've received a report of unpermitted renovations and structural changes to your garage. I need to do a walkthrough." It took me a second to process. I hadn't changed anything, unless you count installing a wall-mounted tool rack, which I'm pretty sure doesn't qualify as an unauthorized structural modification. Still, I stepped aside. "Sure, knock yourself out." The guy was polite enough, checked things, took a few photos, found absolutely nothing illegal or non-compliant. But before he left, I asked the obvious question. "Who filed the report?" He raised an eyebrow. "Anonymous complaint. But we get a lot of calls from this neighborhood. One house in particular. Didn't need GPS to figure out where that house was." See, most people wouldn't think much of this, maybe just chalk it up to city bureaucracy. But when you've spent the past week fending off a coordinated HOA harassment campaign from a beige sedan dictator, it doesn't feel random. It feels intentional. It feels like war. And that's when I stopped playing defense. Step 1. Dig. I started asking around, quietly. You'd be amazed what neighbors will tell you once they realize you're not the lunatic with clipboards and binoculars. Turns out, Karen had beef with half the block. The Johnsons, 2 doors down, she reported them for having excessive wind chimes. The family across the street, Karen filed a complaint because their Halloween decorations violated seasonal decor guidelines. In October. Then, I got lucky. The real gold came from old Mr. Levinson. He's the retired guy who walks his dog in cargo shorts year-round. Turns out, he used to be on the HOA board. She was a nightmare, he told me. Micromanaged everything. Fined people for having the wrong type of bird bath. She even tried to get my flag taken down for being too visually aggressive. Any of that documented? I asked. He chuckled. Son, I still have the emails. Step 2. Expose. Over the weekend, I compiled everything. Karen's complaints, her baseless citations, the false report to the city, and, most deliciously, a copy of an internal HOA memo from last year warning her not to act independently without board approval. Turns out, she did it anyway. Repeatedly. Oh, and did I mention she was never supposed to fine people without a vote? Yeah. So, Monday night, I attended the HOA monthly. Each board member, a file folder. I've documented a pattern of abuse, targeted harassment, and unauthorized actions taken by your secretary over the past 18 months. Karen froze. Included are timestamps, photos, witness statements, and official city documentation of a false code enforcement report filed last week, which, by the way, could be considered a criminal offense. The room was dead silent. I added, if this board doesn't take immediate action, I'll be forwarding this to the city attorney's office. Karen tried to speak, tried to claim I was twisting things, but the documents did the talking. The board president flipped through the file and said, we'll be reviewing this immediately. And then they voted, right there, in public, to suspend Karen from the HOA board pending investigation. She stormed out, slamming her clipboard so hard it cracked. I swear I heard someone clap. But I wasn't done, because Karen's real weakness wasn't just her arrogance, it was her reputation. And I was about to take that too. After Karen got suspended from the HOA board, things were quiet for a few days. Too quiet. No notes, no fake fines, no mysterious cars in my garage. Just the occasional death glare from across the street when we both happened to take our trash out at the same time. You know, classic suburban tension, simmering under the surface like a casserole ready to blow. But I wasn't done, because while she might have lost her clipboard, Karen still had one thing, the delusional belief that she was untouchable, and I wanted to break that. See, our HOA sends out a monthly digital newsletter. Boring stuff. Lawn care tips, community yard sale dates, how to properly recycle a pizza box. Normally, it's ghostwritten by a volunteer and reviewed by the board. But this month, guess who volunteered? Yours truly. Technically, I was just helping the interim secretary who didn't know how to use MailChimp. What a shame. The issue was standard stuff, until you hit page 3. A word on conduct, know your rights, and your property lines. In it, I laid out a beautiful, sarcastically polite breakdown of what constitutes trespassing, what power the HOA actually has, hint, less than Karen thinks, the importance of not impersonating city officials or filing false reports, and a special sidebar titled, Your Neighbor's Garage is Not a Community Amenity. Oh, and the kicker, a public reminder that any harassment or misuse of authority by board members should be reported, and that legal remedies are available to residents. It went out to 84 homes. I didn't name her directly. Didn't need to. By Tuesday, 3 different people had forwarded it back to me with laughing emojis and captions like, "We all know who this is about." By Thursday, I heard she canceled her usual morning HOA patrol. People started joking about putting Karen-proof locks on their sheds. Her social currency? Gone. Her reputation? Toasted. And her latest humiliation? Still to come. The universe, as it turns out, has impeccable timing, because a week after the newsletter, I got a letter from the city. Apparently, they'd followed up on the complaint Karen filed against me. Not only did they find nothing, they discovered she had submitted the report using a fake name and burner email from an HOA computer. That, my friend, is called misuse of municipal resources, which is a finable offense. which the city did fine her for. $400. Not life-ruining money, but just enough for the message to sting every time she opened her beige wallet. It's been 2 months. Karen? She's quieter now. She still lives across the street, still waters her hydrangeas with a little too much aggression, but the clipboard is gone. The HOA hasn't reinstated her. Apparently, there's a petition circulating to ban her from future board positions. Installed new garage security. Mostly symbolic, but satisfying. And just for fun, I repainted my mailbox, slightly darker shade of blue. Again, no notes this time. And the best part? Every time I open my garage door, I smile, because that spot, it belongs to me. And Karen? Well, she can park in hell.